Good morning, viewers. I am Suresh Kumar, Assistant Professor and Head, PG and Research Department of English, St. Joseph's College of Arts and Science, Autonomous, Kadalur, Tamil Nadu. Today's session is about Philip Sidney's essay, An Apology for Poetry. Let's now see about the author. Sir Philip Sidney was born in the year 1554. He played many parts during his lifetime. He was a courtier, soldier, statesman, and above all, a distinguished poet of the 16th century. He lived during Elizabethan age, obviously a contemporary of Shakespeare, and we can rightly call this Elizabethan age as English Renaissance. Down to earth, there are many critics, but Sir Philip Sidney is the first critic of English literature. This apology for poetry was first published posthumously in 1595. That is, publication took place after his death. In this unit, we are going to learn 5 important points. They are Sidney's defense and Gosson's abuse, Sidney's views on art and poetry, poetry as superior to history and philosophy. Fourth point, the various kinds of poetry. And the fifth one, Sidney's review of English poetry and drama. Let's now see the first one. Sidney's defense and Gosson's abuse. Stephen Gosson was a Puritan. Puritan means persons who get separated from Catholic Church and they frame their own rules, they change their structure, and they perform their own ceremonies of the church. They are called Puritans. This Stephen Gosson, he published an essay, The School of Abuse, in 1579. In his essay, he attacks poetry. Philip Sidney, a great supporter of poetry, in his apology for poetry, he condemns highly the remarks made by Gosson about poetry. For Sidney, poetry is an art of imitation. It is imitated to teach and delight. There are many means of communication, but according to Sidney, he says that poetry is superior to other means of communication. Let's now see the charges made by Stephen Gosson. I'll list out one by one. The first charge is poetry is waste of time. Second, poetry is mother of lies. It is nurse of abuse. And Gosson says that Plato had rightly banished the poets from his ideal world. To these charges made by Stephen Gosson, Sidney replies that these charges made by Gosson are all false. Let us now see the first charge of Gosson and let's see the reply given by Sidney. The first charge. Gosson says that poetry is waste of time. For that Sidney replies, he says, poetry is the source of knowledge. and also poetry a civilizing force. Here, civilizing means it civilizes people, it uplifts the minds of the people. That's what he means here by civilizing force. Sidney also adds saying that poetry only makes people to be virtuous, and also poetry only amuses the readers. And Sidney also further says that in those days, that is during ancient times, poets were highly respected by the society as well as in the court. From these above points, we can understand that poetry is not a waste of time. Let's now go to the second charge made by Gaussen. Gaussen says poetry is mother of lies. But Sidney opposes this view. He says that a poet is not a liar. Moreover, a poet does not lie because he never says anywhere that his fiction is true. Poetic truths are ideal and universal, in fact. So, according to Sidney, poetry cannot be a mother of lies. Let's now see the third charge made by Gaussen. The third charge is it is nurse of abuse. Sidney condemns this. He says poetry does not abuse, but it is the people who abuse poetry. And these abuses are encouraged, nursed only by the philosophers, by the historians, but not the poets. Only the philosophers, through their philosophy, they encourage these abuses. Of course, historians too. For Sidney, poetry helps to maintain morality, peace, and knowledge. Let's now see the fourth charge made by Gaussen. Gaussen says that Plato, a great philosopher, he himself had rightly banished the poets from his ideal world. But Sidney replies that Plato banished only the abuse of poetry, but nowhere he abused the poets. And Sidney also further adds that Plato, he himself was poetical in his dialogues. If so, how could Plato banish poets? That is the argument of Sidney. According to Sidney, Plato was not against poetry. And there are some astronomers, geometricians, and historians, they all make false statements. And these statements, it cannot be proved. They think, astronomers particularly and historians, what they say is true. But this truth cannot be proved. And Sidney says Plato was against only a particular kind of poetry. The poetry which could be harmful, which would cause harmful effect to the minds of the people. Only such poetry Plato was against, but not poetry in general. And Sidney affirms that poetry is not the falsest of art. Instead, it is the truest form of art. Let's now see the second point. Sidney's views on art and poetry. For Sidney, art is the imitation of nature. Nature as it is very dull, according to Sydney. It is incomplete and also ugly too. It's the artist who turned dull into golden color. For example, rose. See, rose is beautiful, we all know. But a poet, he adds further beauty to rose from his poetic lines. He makes anything which appears dull into a golden color. That shows the greatness of poets. And Sydney also says, he uses the phrase speaking picture. He says art is a speaking picture. That's true, because Wordsworth poem Daffodils. Wordsworth sees the beautiful yellow golden daffodils, but when he comes back home, he visualizes what he saw on the sides of the lake. He saw those flowers from his inward eye, and flowers seems to talk to him. So that's why Sydney says that it is a speaking picture. Sydney says the only purpose of art is to teach and delight. That is, it must teach us to virtuous action, and it must delight, it must give us happiness. That's the purpose of art, according to Sydney. He says poetic justice is possible only in poets' world. Poetic justice means good people are rewarded and wicked people are punished. This is poetic justice, and this kind of justice can be given only by poets in their own world. Sydney also adds saying, poetry teaches virtue by example as well as by precept. Precept means following some rules, regular rules. And he also upholds, Sydney, that though there are different forms of poetry, epic is the best form of poetry because it inspires people to become courageous and patriotic. As mentioned earlier, Sydney's poetry teach and delight. This concept is also followed by the great philosophers Aristotle and Horace. When Sydney says poetry is an imitation, it does not mean simply reproducing what exists already. Sydney means saying creating something new, what does not exist. It is a poet who brings to this world. Hence, we can rightly call that poets are the real makers. Now, let's go to the third point. Poetry is superative over philosophy and history. Poetry is the first light. Light here means it brings back people from darkness of ignorance. No other form of art and science could do this effectively except poetry. Sydney also affirms that the first philosophers and historians, they were two poets, and every nation has poets. We cannot see any nation without poets. And Sydney also, again, he insists that poetry is a speaking picture which uplifts human life to perfection. There can be many arts and sciences, but the main objective of poetry is to lift human life to perfection. This, Sydney says, fulfilling the end by virtuous action. This end is achieved through virtuous action, according to Sydney. Sidney proves his superiority over history and philosophy by saying that philosophers teach by precepts, that is, as I said earlier, following some general rules, and historians always teach by examples. But it is only the poet who combines both precept and example. Sidney says that philosophers, they teach virtuous actions, virtue, in abstract arguments. For example, they talk about love, death, all these things, they are all abstract arguments. Historians, they teach virtue by showing experience of the past. But it is only the poet who accomplishes this dual task. The dual task of combining precept and example. Moreover, poetry does not imitate nature. It is the reader who imitates. Sidney says that poetry does not deal with any particular object. The discussion a poet takes is always universal. He never attaches to personal emotions. Hence, poetry teaches virtue, and he says that that is the end of all learning, which is superior to arts and science. Now let us see the fourth one, the various kinds of poetry. Sidney now talks about different kinds of poetry: pastoral poetry, elegiac poetry, and satiric poetry, and so on. Let's now see the pastoral poetry. Pastoral poetry, it talks about the beauty of simple life and the miseries of common people. Here he quotes the example of the poem of Wordsworth, The Solitary Reaper. Next one is elegiac poetry. Elegiac poetry talks about the weaknesses of mankind and wretchedness of the world. He says an elegy written in country churchyard could be the apt example for this elegiac poetry. Satiric poetry. Here, this kind of poem laughs at the folly and it unmasks villainy. For example, The Rape of the Lock by Alexander Pope. This could be the apt example for satiric poetry. Comedy shows the common errors of life in a very ridiculous manner. Tragedy talks about the uncertainties of life. Lyric poetry, it's a song in praise of God. Of all poetry, Sidney uplifts, thinks only heroic poetry is great, because it is through heroic poetry we can learn heroism as well as moral goodness. Sidney says this poetry, it's not only a kind but the best and accomplished kind of poetry. The fifth one, Sidney's review of English poetry and drama. Sidney feels very bad to know the pathetic state of poetry in England. Not only poetry, All imaginative literature, like drama, they face the same problem in England. The reason could be the stepmotherly attitude that people show towards poetry. And also, people don't write good poems, they write uninspired writing. That could be another reason, root cause for the decadence of the standard of poetry. Sidney also rightly affirms that a poet is born and not made. Here I would like to quote Coleridge. Coleridge says, poesy must not be drawn by the ears, it must be gently led, or rather, it must lead. In short, poetry must attract us towards it. Sidney also mentions some of the poems of Chaucer and considers Chaucer's poems are the best ones. For example, Troilus and Cressida, Canterbury Tales, and also the poems of Sackville, Surrey, and Spenser are the best poems, which Sidney quotes. In drama too, it has reached a pathetic state in England. But this condition was redeemed, was saved by the play Gorboduc. Now let's come to the conclusion. Sidney says that English poetry has also undergone degeneration. The reasons are contemporary poets lack the genuine love for poetry, they lack training to write good poetry, and Sidney here humorously threatens people who are allergic to poetry. So, towards the end, Sidney, in his own humorous way, make us fall in love with poetry and behold, and we behold Sidney as the first critic. Thank you.